Trina, and this is Monthly Recommendations. If you want to know more about the group or if you want to join in, then there are links and information down below. And this month for June, our topic is books set around the world or books that feature travel. The way that I'm choosing to do it is to focus on books that are set outside of the United States, and I tried to hit every single continent with these recommendations with the exception of one. Before I get started, I want to give a shout out to a booktuber that does do our monthly recommendations topics, and that is Kirsty from Melbourne on My Mind. She actually has an ongoing series on her channel called Global Reads, where she goes continent by continent and recommends the books that she has read that are set there. Definitely check out her videos on that if you want to know more books that are set all around the world. One of my favorite books is Just One Day by Gayle Forman. This is about a girl in high school that is on a summer school trip to England, and there she meets a guy in an acting troupe, and they decide that they're gonna go spend one day in Paris together, the most romantic city in the world, and they kind of fall for each other in like a realistic way, but when she wakes up the next day, he's gone, and she has no idea what happened. Did he just ditch her, or did something bad happen? And so the rest of the book goes on her journey to figure out what happened, because she really didn't have any closure from that situation. So the book initially starts out in England, and then it moves to Paris. The main character, Allison, is from the United States, so there are some scenes there, and then she actually goes on a trip to Mexico. She ends up in the Netherlands. Travel is such a large theme in it, and then also just finding yourself, traveling the world, and getting to have all these different experiences with the people that you meet along the way, and I just really love this book. I would highly recommend it. Another series set in North America and Europe is the Heroes of Olympus series by Riordan. This is the continuation of the first Percy Jackson and the Olympians series, and I have to tell you guys, I preferred this series to the first one, and this one does travel throughout North America. We've got a lot of locations in the US, also in Canada, and the later few books in the series are actually completely set in Greece and Italy, since this series is based on Greek and Roman mythology. I found the series to be fun and adventuresome, would definitely recommend it if you love mythology. Next, I would recommend Passenger by Alexandra Bracken. This is a time travel story, but the characters also travel the world. The locations we go to in this one are set in Europe, Asia, and North America. I felt like Alexandra Bracken's writing really brought these locations to life. Her descriptions really enabled me to feel like I was there with the characters, so I would definitely recommend this one if you have a touch of wanderlust and want to travel the world and also throughout time. I would also recommend 172 Hours on the Moon by Johan Harstad. This is a YA horror novel. This is about three teenagers that are chosen to go and spend 172 hours on the moon with one of NASA's programs, and while they're up there they find out that something weird is going on the moon. The first half of this book is actually set on Earth as we're meeting these three characters, and they are actually from Japan, Norway, and France. This book was written by a Norwegian author, and it was originally written in Norwegian and translated into English. So this is an international book in the sense of where the author is from and also where the characters are from and where it's set. I would also recommend the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy by Laini. This is a fantasy series, and a good majority of the series does take place in a separate fantasy world, but the first book does have a large section that takes place in Prague, and books 2 and 3 do have a central location that is set in Morocco and Africa, so there is a sense of experiencing different parts of the world to this one as well. And if you aren't familiar with this series, it essentially is about an angel and demons that fall in love, but neither one of them are all good or all bad, and this war that's going on between them. It's a really interesting and beautifully written series. Next, I would recommend the Lunar Chronicles series by Marissa Meyer. This, of course, is a very popular science fiction fairy tale retelling series, but the first book is actually set in a futuristic version of China, the second book is set in France, and a large part of the third book is set in Africa, so there is still that kind of worldwide feeling to the series. I really loved the series, and I really liked seeing these different locations like in the future. Another book that is set primarily in Africa, which is a very underrated book, is Vain by Fisher Amelie. This is the first book in an independently published series. I think it's called The Seven Deadly, and each one focuses on a different one of the seven deadly sins, and the first one is focusing on vanity. So we follow a character that lives in the US, and she's extremely vain, very into like labels and appearances, and she gets in trouble with the law, and she makes a deal where she can go and serve at a mission in Uganda, and of course while she's there she's kind of taken down a notch. And it was a really powerful and impactful story. I actually do have a book that is set in Antarctica, which I bet you're thinking is the one continent I wouldn't have had a book set in. But for Antarctica, the third book in the Legend trilogy by Marie Lu actually has a big portion of it set in Antarctica. This is a futuristic dystopian series, but it was really cool to see her take on what Antarctica might look like in the future. In fact, in that book, it was like the world's superpower. This series overall is one of the few dystopians that actually deals with what the rest of the world is like. Most dystopians are like set in one town in the United States and you have no idea what's going on with the rest of the world. So I would definitely recommend this one. The last recommendation I have is from Australia, and I couldn't think of YA books set in Australia, but for an Australian book, I am going to recommend a book that is written by Australian authors, and that is Illuminae by Kristoff and Amie Kauffman. Both of them are Australian authors. This book is a science fiction book that takes place in space. It's about basically like biological warfare in space. And if you notice, there is one continent that I did not cover in this, and that is South America, which was surprising because I thought surely Antarctica would be harder to find than South America. But I know of a few books that are set there that I would like to read, and I would love to hear your recommendations of books that are set in South America as well as Australia. Please let me know those down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the comments. Bye!